Welcome to Soul Food and Renee. To make a change in your life is never an easy task. I know for me it's very difficult. However, when talking about making serious change and converting something that we completely believe in, this, I believe, cannot be done on our own. This can only be done when we're willing to listen to God, and not only listen, have the courage to make that change. Today, my guests are going to share their incredible journey of change. And by the grace of God, not only heard what was being asked of them, but responded to that call. So today, we'll be making casseroles, as there are many ingredients to mix together to make that perfect casserole, just the same when we make a conversion in our life. Hi, Delone and Bashar.
Hello, Renee.
Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so glad we made it. We made it happen. It wasn't easy,
Yes.
but we made it. So before we get into you guys' amazing story, I have a serious question. Do either of you know how to cook? Don't lie. You can't lie on this show.
Okay, all right. I can make salads and eggs.
Not bad. You can do a lot with salad and
You
eggs.
can do a lot with salad.
There's
I mean,
a lot.
it's a whole lot of greens.
Right.
You can mix them. You can make a nice little.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But
I can
Delone?
warm up a TV dinner.
Wait, how do you do that?
It's difficult.
Listen,
I'll teach you on the show.
You have to take the plastic off.
Plastic off first.
That's key.
That's the key. That's the first step.
So today, I don't know if this is going to be a blessing. Your wives might be calling me and saying, "What did you do?" But I'm going to show you guys. Maybe you guys can surprise you. I'm going to show you how to make a casserole. Nice. We're actually making a couple, and your story is so important. I know how much it affected me, that this is going to be a two-part. So we get like two for the price of one. Maybe.
There's food. You told me there's food. That's why. That's how you sold it to me. So I'm here.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. And without, I really just kind of really want to get into it. Both of you guys have amazing stories. The end result is the same, which all glory to God.
Amen.
But different paths, Both of you were born Catholic, raised Catholic.
Yes.
And life happens, things change. So, Bashar, I kind of want to start with you. Life happened. What happened? Tell us your story.
Yeah.
But before you do that,
Yes.
let me just tell people, I am browning this meat. We're making a beef noodle casserole. I actually just sauteed some ground meat and put some salt, pepper, and garlic powder and just added a can of tomato sauce. And I'm going to let this cook for a little bit. And I'm also boiling some egg noodles while we're at it. Go ahead, Bashar, don't mind me.
Renee, you're right. I certainly grew up Catholic. In fact, my home was very normal. I have very loving parents and grandparents, and everybody kind of always said, you got to go to church and everything else. So since I was a kid, I loved Jesus. I got to say it that way. As a child, you couldn't separate me from Jesus. And it's really strange. As I grew older, I was even teaching catechism. But then as I grew older and older, and I mean after high school, I started going to college. And then the world of the intellect got to my head. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it got to my head.
So when you say the intellectual world got to your head,
Yeah.
What is it? So we live in a world, we live in a very intellectual world. I just want to kind of get a better understanding of what that means. So you obviously went to school, you had your beliefs. So did the world influence that belief? So it became more of a science thing, or kind of just a little bit elaborate?
I think what really happened is a multi-work here. Kind of like how your ingredients for your casserole. I think the coming back needs ingredients, but the leaving almost needs ingredients.
Right.
In my situation in engineering school, something interesting happened. I started learning a lot of stuff, scientific stuff. I took philosophy, and I went to a Catholic university. But then, little by little, I started depending on God in terms of prayer. Okay, so and I mean by prayer, it was very shallow. It became a contract. Okay, God, I'm going to study. You help me pass the test. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, that's what we, I
Right.
mean, now I do similar things.
Right.
But the relationship behind it, there was no relationship. It was God was far away kind of person.
He was this person up in the sky,
Up
like,
in the
hey.
sky. Yeah, I've never, I've taken a flight before, but I've never seen that castle where I can just go on the clouds and walk and get there.
Right.
So long story short, or long story longer, however.
That's why this is 2 parts.
Yeah, right. A couple of things happened in my life where I wanted to get a job, and the market was really down at that time. So I graduated, and not having a job, I said, okay, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to go to God. I'm going to say, God, rub the lamp and grant me my wishes.
Right.
I need a job. Well, there was no job. So then a month later, God, hello, are you not listening? Maybe I need to yell louder. There's no job. There's no job. There's no response. In fact, it was quiet. It was quiet on the inside, quiet on the outside. But there's a lot that led to that quietness. Part of it is the partying. This is what I mean. The world, the intellect, because you almost have to be pleasing to people. So there's the partying. There's
Fitting in to what we think society is.
the fitting in, right? So there was the fitting in. Then there was the knowledge. Then there was a whole bunch of stuff. And before you know it, I'm calling out and there's no response. So my scientific mind now started saying, hey, when you yell and you're outside and you're looking up in the sky, we know that there's the clouds, there's if you go above that, there's space, the moon, the planets, everything else. Where's God? Oh boy, I don't know. And so it came to a point that I really didn't know if God exists. So it was very, very hard turning point, because just a few years before that, I had a great conversation one way, so to speak. Maybe it was 2-way, but I don't know at that time. But now I'm all of a sudden, 21 years old, and there's no God. It was a very, very interesting time.
So you basically, you're saying, did you stop believing in God?
Yes.
So you just basically said, okay, maybe deep in your mind you knew there was a God. Obviously, we'll get to that part. But in your intellectual mind, you said God doesn't exist.
I looked at it from this way, right? If I'm going to do something, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I'm praying, that's an action. There's no reaction. So I'm here. I know I'm saying things. Nobody on the other side is responding.
Right.
So how could there be a God if there's no reaction to my action?
Right. Right.
So then it didn't make sense.
Right. And being that you're engineer, everything has to, every I has to dot, every T has to cross.
That's part of what I
Right.
learned.
And
the building blocks and,
right.
and everything.
And one can understand that because of your mind, but you don't always have to have that mind, right? Because we now have DeLone, who's not an engineer, right?
Nowhere near.
Right? See, that's why.
He's better.
But before I get to DeLone, okay, I need to let you guys know the pasta is in the works.
Ooh.
So now all I did was brown the meat, salt, pepper, garlic powder. You guys following me?
We're following.
Tomato sauce.
Yes.
I now have a cup of ricotta cheese. You guys can do this. A cup of ricotta cheese.
Okay.
3/4 cup of sour cream. Very interesting.
That's interesting.
And a 1/2 cup of green onions. I'm going to mix this. Okay? Mix this up, and I'm taking this and I'm adding it to the sauce. We're getting fancy.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And DeLone, without further ado, please tell us what happened.
All right. Wow. I've known Bashar for a while now, and I've known somewhat of his story, but to hear it in a little greater detail was very interesting. My upbringing was different, though. It was definitely, I was baptized Catholic, so once you're baptized, you're sealed, and I was sealed at the time, but never did I recognize it. In our household, there was no talk of religion. There was no faith. The word God didn't even get mentioned in our house. That happened from uncles, aunts, grandparents, especially on one side more than the other. there just wasn't anything with God involved. And I remember actually, funny now, looking back, I see some communion tapes of us, and I saw how passionate I was singing the hymns and learning everything, and I was like so joyful at the time. And looking back at it now, I say, man, what a different path that happened. And, you know, starting in my teenage years, I started at a very young age falling into what we're talking about with the peer pressure and the different things of society. And at the time I got involved at, 14, 15 years old, smoking marijuana. I was even drinking, regularly at this age, going out. We got fake IDs. We'd go up to Canada. We weren't even old enough to drive. We had older friends who were driving us.
And Uber didn't exist either.
There was no Uber at this time. No, we just had older friends, and we literally, used fake IDs, and, partying was our life.
Right.
Our mindset was to have fun, and our having fun was partying, and it was, girls and drinking and having a good time, and in our minds, this was our happiness.
This was life.
This was life. This was ordinary life, and at the time, I thought I was the happiest person in the world. I didn't feel any emptiness or sadness, but that was very blocked out by always being high and drunk and all these things. But a significant moment that stuck out in the midst of all this is at 16 years old, just turned 16, about to turn 16 years old. Me and one of my very dear friends, we were driving to the mall on just a regular Saturday to a mall local here, 12 Oaks Mall, Novi. And we were on our way, and he was in the driver's seat, I was in the passenger seat. And as we were driving, we got up a hill getting to a light, and there happened to be a lot of traffic backed up that day. So my friend had to make an instant decision, because when he was going into the left turn lane, he was going to smash into the car in front of us. So he ran into oncoming traffic. And by doing so, he swerved out of control. One car came and kind of turned the car around, hitting us. And another car came straight through his door with a very, very tough, strong impact. And at the time, I blacked out for about 15 seconds. And when I woke up, I looked next to me, and my friend was just laying there. Didn't look like anything was really wrong with him, but he got into a panic attack, and he just started shaking and everything. And unfortunately, he didn't make it out of that accident. And I remember being...
And you were 16.
I wasn't even 16 yet. He had just turned 16 a month before. I was turning 16 a few months later. And we were, like I said, our mindset was partying and girls and everything. We were literally going to the mall to meet up with some girls. That's all we cared to do.
Right.
And we went there, and I remember when this happened, I just kept asking myself, what is going on? How is this even possible? And when I'm trying to get answers from people, I'm not getting anything. The only answers I'm hearing from family is, that's life. The answers I'm hearing from people who have faith in their life, they say, oh, he's with God now. And
at this point alone, I'm sorry.
No, sure.
You said you didn't, but did you believe?
No. Oh, thank you. Yeah, no.
So at this point,
No.
you grew up in a family. So you went to, as Catholics, we're baptized when we're babies.
I was baptized. I took my communion.
And communion
I went to church maybe on Christmas.
Right.
But the word God was never a part of my life or my mind.
Okay.
It was never even a thought. It wasn't
so
that I didn't believe.
So at this point, you really...
I didn't care.
You were indifferent.
Indifferent.
Okay.
I could care less.
Okay.
I could care less.
Okay.
But and thank you for bringing that up, because that's a very valid point. At the time, it never even crossed my mind. But after a situation like this and what took place and the way people responded with, oh, he's with God, now he's in heaven, really pissed me off.
Right.
And it pissed me off to a point where I turned very angry against it. And I was like, how in the heck are you going to tell me that he's with God now and he's in heaven? If you guys are talking about this loving God that now he's in heaven and that's a good thing, why would he take such an innocent life at such a young age? He's a 16-year-old kid just driving to the mall. Now his family's going to have to live the rest of their lives without a child, a brother, all these things. And why would you take our friend?
And you were so young and dealing with those emotions in
Sure.
terms of just experiencing something like that.
I didn't even know how to respond,
Right.
but with anger.
With anger, so you were angry.
And the way we dealt with that, our group of friends, was smoking more marijuana, drinking, partying. And,
And Delone, because I've known you
sure.
for a very long time.
Sure.
There was a time I remember when somebody would say, we'll turn to God, you would dismiss them in such a...
Oh, yeah, that's coming up.
Sorry to put you on blast.
No, I'm an open book about that. Yeah,
we're here.
No, I actually love to discuss these things in detail because I want people to know how real it is, and it was for me. That I'm not just I kind of didn't believe. I mean, I was full blown at this point. I can't stand the thought of people even talking about a God.
Right.
Because there is no such thing, and this is just dumb to even discuss. How could you believe in a God when so many horrible things are happening? Right. And mind you, after that, there were so many things that followed within those about a 3-year gap. I had two of my grandpas, one of my grandmas, one of my aunts, one of my relatives all pass away. I had another very close friend in our group pass away up at Michigan State. He was on campus. He was a dear friend of ours, and he passed away out of nowhere with a diabetes attack in the middle of the night. And all of us are just sitting here saying, what is going on? Right. And the more and more these things happened, the more and more I was convinced that there's no God. And I was not only convinced, but like you just mentioned, when people brought it up, it turned into a very hostile debate, turned into a very hostile scene. It was nasty. I did not treat it kindly. I was very vulgar. And the way we dealt with responding to these deaths was, like I said, just the partying and having a good time. And we thought that this is going to be a way to cope with what we're going through because we don't have an answer.
Right.
There is no answer.
And when you have, the worst part of it is when you're adding alcohol and so on as a suppressant. So basically, you're taking all the emotions and feelings, and instead of dealing with them and releasing them in the right way, now they're put in a box.
Them,
Exactly. And somebody when you and I would bet you put a label on that box, God's fault.
Yeah. All the time.
If there isn't one, but that's what it would be.
Well, that's the funny thing. You don't believe in God, but if there is a God, it's his fault.
Well, right? But you know what I mean? Like at this point in time, if somebody would have tapped that and just tried to open that box, don't mention God because that's the key.
Yeah.
The key to open that box is the word God, is those 3-letter words.
That's always the interesting thing, right? Because deep down we do know there is one, or else we wouldn't be angry at him. Sure. How could you be angry at something that doesn't exist?
Sure.
That's the thing that. When you're in it, you don't think that, right? Obviously. No. But now in hindsight, obviously we do.
Yeah.
So you guys, while you guys were speaking, I took the pasta, the meat, mixed the noodles. I put about a cup of cheddar cheese in. We're baking this for 20 minutes. I think you guys can handle this recipe.
Our wives will be happy.
Our wives will be very happy.
And it's delicious.
Can we surprise them?
And act like we cooked it.
Yes, just take that
They won't know till the show airs.
Nobody would know.
Right. There you go. See?
All right. We just got to edit that part out.
Yes.
God's watching. God's watching, guys. He's watching.
She got us there.
Thank you guys for sharing this amazing story. And, I think there are so many people that can relate to each of you in your journeys. And there is good news to this story, okay? Because even in the midst of all your dark days, in all of the darkness, when you didn't think there was a God, when at the same time you were blaming him, he was there. And you guys found that. And you found it in such a profound manner that it's so beautiful to hear this story and to see where you guys are at. So our next episode is going to be the amazing story of what happened continuing.